this is one of the purchases that made a massive difference to my art journey. Hey, welcome! In this video, I'm going to be highlighting some of my favorite art supplies and I guess like art adjacent supplies from Amazon. I tend to like doing this kind of video every year. I'll be sure to link my previous videos in the description because I'm trying to mention different things each time so that all the videos are beneficial for you. There will be like a few duplicates because there are just some things that are still like my favorite and it feels crazy not to mention them in this video. But for the most part, everything else is separate. There is currently, when I'm releasing this, hopefully if editing me edits on time, there is currently an Amazon Prime sale, which means that some of these items may actually be an even better price than they normally are, so be sure to check that out if you are interested. But irrespective of the time of the year, these are still some of my favorite things. So I recorded this before knowing the sales so that I wouldn't be swayed or biased. The first thing is this, and if you've been on my channel long enough, you've probably seen this like 101 times, and it is essentially a stay wet palette where I put in my gouache, and I just absolutely love it. It definitely like increased my ability to be able to paint with gouache more because it was just easily accessible. All the colors were out there, and I love painting outdoors. If you don't know, I'll link that playlist where I share all the painting that I do outdoors, and this just makes it easier because I essentially have 16 colors in this compact place instead of carrying all the separate tubes. So I've made like a modification to it, and that's adding this very thin sheet of metal, which I again also got from Amazon, and it's adhesive. And the reason that I did that is because when I'm painting outdoors, I really like incorporating magnets into my like urban sketching setup, and this just means that this plastic palette can now be incorporated into that setup and stay firmly on my either Etch-a-Slate Mini or whatever I'm using to paint outdoors. It just makes my life super easy. So that's a little hack if you have the same one, but otherwise I love this. I've bought quite a few because I tend to like having different palettes for different moods. So this is like my normal go-to one, and then this one is a new one where I'm trying out a few different blues to see which ones I like most. But so far, no complaints, still one of my absolute favorite palettes, and I've created a whole separate video talking about it, and I will link it for you as well. And then that kind of takes us very nicely to what I put inside it, and that's my favorite gouache, and that is the Winsor & Newton gouache. There is a set, an introductory set that has 10 gouache tubes. I think that's a really good place to start, and that's pretty much how I started with the Winsor & Newton gouache. In the UK, the prices range wildly on Amazon. It's usually between £24 and £30. I'm hoping with the sales, maybe it will be less, and if it is, then that's an amazing deal to go for. But as I say, I started off with that introductory set, and then I have gradually like built up the individual tubes I actually get from Jackson's, which I will link down below. And I think that's a good way to start if you are completely new to gouache, or if you only like using the split primary colors, for example, or you don't know what colors to start with. It just gives you a really good foundation and can then gradually branch out. I think the only like super essential to me color that's perhaps missing from there is like a burnt umber, because I tend to like creating gouache landscapes. And they have a zinc white, like it's a good white for mixing but not the best white for highlights, so I tend to like buying a permanent white if I'm buying it individually, but a white is a white, you can use both. And speaking of which, I should probably say I will be doing a gouache landscapes course which will be free for my subscribers. I will link it down below in the description for you as well. It will be free for a limited time for subscribers, and then the replay will be available for my Ko-fi members, and I'll link all that down below in the description. Okay, next, still thinking about like art supplies and mediums, is this. So this is the set of 15 Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2s, and they are water soluble wax pastels. And I've just really enjoyed using them. They are really versatile. You can use them in their dry state. You can add water and kind of turn them into, it's not quite like watercolor. It's just a little bit more opaque. It's like a in-between gouache and watercolor kind of paint consistency. These are not the colors that actually come in the 15 set. So like the gouache, I bought the 15 set. I got a really good range of colors from there. And I think that's a really good place to start, but obviously have a look and see if they're the colors that you like. And then from there, I was able to just pick out and buy open stock from Jackson's and from other art stores and just pick out the colors that I tend to use most. I tend to like putting my most used colors inside the tin so that I can carry them around when I am traveling. But yeah, this cute little set is definitely one that I really love. There are 84 Neocolor too, so there's definitely like a wide range of colors to pick from. But if you don't know where to start, then I think the 15 set or any of the sets might be a really good place to just cast an eye and see which one best suits you. Can we take a moment to talk about an underdog? I feel like this brand is in most people's pencil case, in most people's arsenal. Most people will agree that they love it, and we just never like actually talk about them. I have made a video about them and I'll link it for you to just highlight some of my favorite items from this brand, and this isn't sponsored, but I just felt like I needed to give them a proper shout out, and that's Pentel. Like I said, there's a number of things that have been made by Pentel that I really love, and I made a whole separate video. The ones that I wanted to feature in this video is one, this Graph Gear 1000 pencil, and this is essentially a mechanical pencil. I can't explain how or why this pencil changed my life. But as you may know, there was a period of time that I was just buying the cheapest possible pencils. I would use them, they would break, they, you know, would get messy, and then I would buy another one, and I was just buying them over and over and over again, and because they were quite inexpensive, I was fine with it. And then I got the Graph Gear pencil, and now it's like one, I enjoy sketching more. I can't explain why. It's got like a metal body. You can replace the lead. When I'm sketching and when I want to sketch, I automatically start looking for this pencil. So I didn't think that it was a big deal, but since I got this pencil, I haven't bought any of the other cheap pencils. It hasn't broken and I've enjoyed sketching. So I can't explain it, and if you can explain what it is about this pencil that we all love so much, please let me know. I don't know if it's the body, I don't know if it's, I think it's the feel, the body, everything. There's other standouts for me from Pentel. I have so many other great pens and I speak about them in a separate video, but these two pens in particular, both of these have brush nibs, and the reason that I've enjoyed using them is just because it allows me to play with the weight of my lines when I'm doing different kinds of sketching. It's come incredibly handy when urban sketching. I find they allow my drawings, my sketches, my paintings to just have a little bit more personality. This one comes with a cartridge that you can replace and is a nice and thin brush nib. I do tend to lean more towards liking water resistant ink, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. They also have separate brush pens, so there are quite a few different types, all by Pentel, but all of them just allow me to like play around with my different line widths. They've just been a lot of fun to use, and I don't think that they get enough recognition for how cool and affordable they are. So I think all year round they're a pretty good price, but hopefully maybe with the current sales they'll be even better. I've really struggled making this list and narrowing it down because I quickly realized that I tend to buy a lot of different art supplies from Amazon. So the way that I narrowed it down was the way that I thought would bring most value, and that's by highlighting the things that are either art supplies or art supply adjacent that I just use the most often. And the list of everything is in the description down below. I've also sent an email to my email subscribers, and if you want to be part of that mailing list, be sure to check the description down below. Yeah, I hope that this makes it easy for you, and if you're enjoying this video and you want to see more like this, then don't forget to hit the like button. It is a free way that makes a very massive difference to my channel, and it lets YouTube know that I am doing a good job, so thank you in advance. But with no further ado, let's continue looking at some of my most used art supplies. Staying in the urban sketching / creating art while traveling feel, we also have this. Okay, so this is an aqua brush pen, and essentially the way that it works is that you fill water into this cartridge bit, and then as you paint, you just apply different amounts of pressure that feeds water through to the brush, and then you are able to have an easy way to just paint out and about on the go, rather than worrying about how you're going to carry water or carry in jugs or just using dry media. You can use this one brush pen, wipe it on tissue or something to clean it, and then pick up your paint and keep painting. So it's like a clever solution. I do tend to like the feel of normal brushes more, so I do tend to use normal brushes as much as I can, but when I can't, this comes in as a great solution. And again, the Pentel ones are my favorite, so there we go. I think it depends on like what exactly I want to create, but sometimes I want to use fine liners like the Unipin fine liners or the point liners by Pentel, or sometimes even the microns, although I stopped buying them because they were a bit on the pricier side. But sometimes I like fine liners and I want things to be really clean and precise, and the expressiveness comes from the watercolor. And at other times I want to play with the lines, I want to have different widths, I want to have personality in the lines, and that's when the brush pens that I have spoken about kind of really come in handy. But as well as that, sketching with fountain pens, like who knew that it was so much fun. So this is my go-to pen at the moment, and it's the Lamy Safari pen. It's got a, I'm so messy with it. It's got a fine nib. It's too messy for me to show you. And I actually bought a converter for it. And what that means is that I can put any ink that I want inside it. And this kind of little red lever plunger thing is what helps me move the plunger here in order to suck up the ink. And the ink that I tend to love putting in it, that hasn't let me down thus far, carbon ink. Can you see it? And it's essentially a water resistant ink. I've put it in this fountain pen for a few months now. I haven't had any issues with it, and it allows me to watercolor over my lines without there being any bleed as long as I wait for it to dry. So for me, this two combo I really enjoy. Another thing that it feels like has to be mentioned is these palettes. So they come in black, they come in like bluey colors, they come in this really cool rainbow color, and they're essentially empty metal tins that are again magnet friendly, and that can take usually either up to 20 or 21 half pans inside. There are so many cleverly designed palettes and I love all of them, but I also just love the simplicity of this one. As always, it's messy, but we're friends here. Actually, it's not as messy as usual. Look at that. So yeah, it comes with two big mixing areas. Some come with half pans, some do not. For me, I can't quite complain. I've had this for I think almost 2 years, maybe 3 years. It hasn't started rusting, it hasn't given me any issues, so I can't really complain. And I think that if you want a very versatile, affordable setup, then these kind of palettes are my go-to. And inside it, I should mention, I have one of my favorite watercolor brands, and that's the Daniel Smith watercolors. And I know that in the US and perhaps in other places in the world, pricing is different, which means that it can be more affordable to get it from Amazon. In the UK, more times than not, it's more affordable to get it from Jackson's. But just in case you were, like I said, we're all keeping eyes out for like good deals. I always recommend checking out everywhere just in case Amazon surprises us and does a really good deal on Daniel Smith watercolors. I've mentioned it so many times, I may as well show this, but this is like art supply adjacent, and it's essentially a clip, as you can see, and they normally come in sets of 6 or sets of 10, and I just love using them. I normally clip them to either hold my pages open when I'm painting outdoors, but then because this black bit is actually a magnet, I can stick my palette to it, or I can stick the neocolored tin to it, or my gouache palette to it. Whatever it is, it just makes it super easy to have, I guess, to have like a versatile but also sturdy setup that you're not worried about falling over and toppling over all the time. And if you want to know more about that, I've created a whole separate video kind of highlighting some of my tips and tricks for urban sketching. I get the magnets from Amazon, travel brushes, and it's on here it says Top Maya. To be honest, I bought this again like 3 years ago. It came in a set of 4, all different sizes, and they have just been super sturdy and reliable since. At the time, Top Maya, I don't know if it's an actual brand, there were just lots of different generic brands on Amazon, and I've linked the one that's closest to the one that I have been using. It has a little like ventilation hole at the bottom, but because it's like this, it means that you can carry your brushes, or you can carry these brushes around with you when you are traveling, and the bristles stay safe, but also it can ventilate, so you should let it dry. But if for reasons unknown you're in a rush and you don't let it dry fully, at least there's a little hole for the brush to ventilate. I haven't had any issues with mold, I haven't had any issues with the bristles coming undone. They still come to a fine tip, and years later, they are still like my go-to paintbrush. I haven't had to buy a replacement one. I've only expanded my collection because I've wanted either bigger sizes or slightly different shapes. But as for these, they have been like an absolute gem, no complaints. If I were to mention what I keep using in the studio, this is like a newish edition, and I'm sure that if you've been in a watercolor game for a while, you know this brand, you know this brush, and you probably have been telling me to get this brush for ages. And this is the Silver Black Velvet brush. It's just a really nice watercolor brush. I got the size 10. It's softer than my other brushes. My other go-to brush is the Princeton Aqua Elite, and that's a bit firmer and holds less water. This, on the other hand, is softer. It holds more water. It's really nice if you like doing glazes and like layering with watercolor because it's soft. And yeah, I'm happy. You were right. I always keep an eye out for fine liners. Specifically, I tend to use the Unipin fine liner or the Pentel point liner. I find that they all work quite well and they come at really good price points. So whichever one out of those two is most affordable, I tend to go for at that time. I've made a video talking about what exactly I put inside it, and it does tend to change from trip to trip, but for the most part that video is still one that I go back to when it's time for me to take a trip because it's just super helpful. And this is essentially a pencil case, but the reason that I love it is because it comes with many compartments, but also spaces for me to either add brushes or to add pencils if I want. And then the actual body of it, it's quite thick, it holds its own, and it just means that I'm able to fit quite a lot. So I have a safe place to carry my actual normal brushes, not just travel brushes. I can carry quite a few pencils. I can leave things open through here. So if I'm putting my markers, I put them in here. I've also put painting palettes, A5 sketchbook, all of that will fit in here, close up, and then be good to go. I keep experimenting with different cases, but ultimately this one is still one of my favorites. Shall we discuss sketchbooks? My current favorite sketchbooks are the Etcher sketchbooks, and I don't know if they're available on Amazon. I tend to get them through Jackson's, but putting the Etcher sketchbooks aside, because I'm not 100% sure they're always on Amazon, the next sketchbook that I keep mentioning in these videos, that I keep admitting I have a love-hate relationship with, is this. And this is the Moleskine watercolor album or watercolor sketchbook. It's an A5 size. They usually call it the large size. It's 21 by 13 centimeters, so slightly more slender than an actual A5. It's dependent on the price because over the past few years, the price has started creeping up. When it's around the like £10, £12 mark, I can't find a better sketchbook. When it's hitting the £20 ballpark, then I look for other sketchbooks. The pros for me are, I love the finish of it. Like, I love the covers, I love the band. It's just very well made. Haven't had any issues with like papers falling out. It's got an envelope at the back, and it's, in that respect, I can't fault it. My issue tends to be that sometimes, I don't know if it's the sizing on the paper or what exactly goes on, but sometimes it doesn't take watercolor very well, and other times it takes it perfectly well. But because of that inconsistency, it's meant that I've started looking for other watercolor sketchbooks, and this may perhaps just end up being like my low pressure sketchbook. It's always price dependent, and also the fact that sometimes I may turn the page and the paper will repel the paint. I don't know why. I still mention it because I still think that it's a very good sketchbook, especially when it is on sale. But I like to add the warning to take it with a pinch of salt, because I think if you're looking for like a really good quality watercolor sketchbook, you're probably better off with the Etcher. If you're looking for a slightly more affordable sketchbook that you can perhaps use every day, that looks very nice and for the most part will be okay, then the Moleskine watercolor sketchbook is my go-to. The other go-to, which is at a cheaper price point, is this one, and this is the Sea White of Brighton watercolor sketchbook. It is A5, like an actual true A5, so it's bigger It's bigger than the Moleskine. It comes with, again, this really nice cover. It has a band to hold it all together. It has a cute little envelope in the back as well. Very nice. The paper inside it is very nice. I've used it for my gouache challenge, and if you haven't seen that, I will link it for you so that you can see me do many paintings in this sketchbook and see how it takes it. And I genuinely have no complaints about the paper, which brings the question, why isn't this my go-to low pressure sketchbook? And it's purely because I like portrait sketchbooks. So I like sketchbooks that open up this way, whereas these ones only come in landscape. So although I like the paper and the make of it, I don't like the orientation, which is why I keep using the Moleskine sketchbooks. But if you prefer landscape and you're in the UK, because it's very affordable in the UK, then I think that this sketchbook is really, really nice if you like painting inside them. One thing that I have absolutely loved that I got from Amazon that is art supply adjacent, but anyone who loves doing swatches or does loads of swatching will completely appreciate and understand, is my printer. So I recently got an Epson printer, and because of the ink that it takes, I am able to create really nice swatch cards, paint over them with watercolor without them running. So being able to create swatch cards so easily has been absolutely wonderful. This is one of the purchases that made a massive difference to my art journey, even though it's completely watercolor adjacent. And I have a very sneakily strong suspicion that it will be on sale. My one is A3, which means that it can print, you know, like big papers, but they do also have an A4 version, and I will link it for you down below in the description. I think this is more so for like my US/Canada/rest of the world friends rather than the UK, and that is the Baohong 100% cotton watercolor paper. This is the Academy one. In the UK, I've only seen on Amazon for like ridiculous prices, so high that I'm sure they don't want to sell it. But I believe that in the US, Amazon quite often has it for an affordable price. I've bought it from a range of different places. None of them have been Amazon. I found it on Temu. I found it on AliExpress. Those tend to be, and also Art Miranda. Those tend to be the best places. Jackson's used to have it, had it again for a little while a few weeks back, and then it disappeared. So keep an eye out on Jackson's as well if you're looking for it. But otherwise, those other places that I've mentioned have it, and they have it for a really good price, and I will link it down below for you, as well as an affiliate code that will give you £100 off or 50% off Temu if you get it from there. I've recently really started loving 100% cotton watercolor paper, so I will be keeping an eye out for the Saunders and for the Fabriano Artistico to see if they go on offer on Amazon as well. The other thing that I kind of want to mention is like ceramic palettes. I do really love mixing on them, and I think that a lot of the time, because I am painting out and about or painting on the go, I don't tend to make use of them very much, but when I do, I always enjoy it, and I'm keeping an eye out for them. This one is by Meeden. Yeah, the majority of my ceramic palettes are actually from Meeden, and I will link them down below. So whether you want like a cute little flower one like this one, or I do have like a bigger one that's rectangle that's a bit more my speed. Okay, I have a couple of honorable mentions. The reason I say honorable mention is I tend to lean more towards watercolor and gouache when creating art. However, I have recently, over the past few months, been delving into mixed media, and I have been absolutely loving it. So although I don't feel like I am an expert when it comes to all these other medias, I can definitely share what I have been enjoying. And one of them is the Ohuhu alcohol markers. We'll probably do a video about this very soon. I think that most people who enjoy creating art with alcohol markers will kind of tell you that they changed the game by significantly lowering the price point of markers and actually being able to try them out. They tend to do good deals anyway throughout the year, but who knows, perhaps today, tomorrow, they will do an even better deal. And then the other kind of media that's changed the game for me is coloring pencils. And as I say, I like using them to complement my watercolor, or to complement my gouache, or to complement my other art. But still, I've really been enjoying them. And although I've bought an array of different ranges, the Artex are the most affordable ones on Amazon at the moment, with a really good quality. You can still keep an eye out for the Faber-Castell Polychromos, as well as the Caran d'Ache Luminance if you want want something that's a little bit more professional. But I think if you are dipping your toes in, you end up in this set especially, you get 126 pencils. There's a freedom that comes with getting a good range of colors for a really good price. I didn't mention many watercolor brands, I think, apart from Daniel Smith, and that's just because I tend to like getting my watercolors from Jackson's and other art stores. This is a summary of my most used art supplies that I have bought from Amazon, and I hope that having insights and a look into what I have been using is helpful for you, and that if there's anything that you are interested in, it is currently well priced for you. As I said, I'll link everything down below for you, including my previous video where I highlighted some other really good deals that were happening on art supplies on Amazon at the time and hopefully are happening again. So if you enjoyed this video, then you will definitely enjoy that one. If you are still watching, then you are a real MVP, and I really appreciate you. Let me know that you are still watching by telling me what your favorite art supplies are as well. I just love getting insight into what different artists are using. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye. Just a gentle reminder to sign up to my free gouache. Just a gentle reminder. Back again. Let's keep going. My current favorite sketchbook is my current favorite sketchbook, the Etcher sketchbook. I don't know why I'm saying it so weirdly. I just need to check my list, make sure that I have mentioned everything.